Hello, and welcome back to my podcast. My name is Melissa Snow, and if you would like to share, like, and subscribe, please do. And I'm here, and I tell spooky stories. I sometimes go to different places and record at haunted shops or haunted places or the graveyard, or just go do some fun things and go hiking and all that kind of stuff. And if you want to follow me, go ahead. And today we're going to be talking about some spooky stories. This first story, so I read stories. So if I'm looking over, that means I'm reading something, and then I tell you my opinion after. So yeah, so here we go. This one says, "This is a weird post, but I am fairly sure my house is haunted, and I want to see if others are having similar experiences. This house was built in 1954, and I moved about 2.5 years ago. I live alone with my dog, and things started happening within a few weeks of moving in. Lights turning on and off, doors closing on their own, etc. One night I was sitting at the kitchen island eating dinner, and a hand grabbed my torso. I also randomly smell cigarette smoke or strong perfume from time to time. My guest bedroom is carpeted, and you can easily see something has walked across the carpet, but often the blinds will randomly open after I have closed them with no footprints on the carpet. My mom came to visit and said that she was getting ready in the morning when someone loudly said her name. My best friend was getting ready and he ran into someone in the bathroom, but nobody was there. He was like backing up and nobody was there. They each told me this on their own, and I'd never mentioned that I thought the house was haunted to them. Today, my AirPod case randomly flew off the kitchen counter. I know this sounds kind of ridiculous, but I really think that place is haunted. And I'm wondering if anyone experienced something similar or how they live with it. I don't feel threatened or unsafe, but it is just weird." All right, so he said he doesn't feel threatened or unsafe, so it's going to be like that forever. The only reason why they're there is because they know you can see them and hear them. They're showing you. Not everyone can see ghosts. Not everyone can hear ghosts. Not everyone can feel ghosts. And if you're feeling that and you've been in there, then that means they know you can hear, see, and feel them. So you're either going to have to just live with it and let it happen, or just ignore it, or seek out help by a medium, a psychic, or whoever can see the dead and talk to the dead. You never know. But if you have other people in your house saying that, then they can feel things too and see things. And just if you are not bothered by it, then maybe you should just keep on going and living your life the way it is. On to the next story. So, on this next story, it says, "I believe you, but no one else believes me when I tell this. My house is 1953 and has 2 ghosts. My stepdaughter and her stepmom claim to be able to sense them. They both said it's an old lady and an old man. Don't worry, they're friendly," they said. "The old lady used to be a gardener and she likes the plants that you have. One day, this neighbor was walking by who had been by our house in some time, who have not been by my house in some time, and told my wife, 'Oh my gosh, I haven't been by in forever. I remember the old lady who used to live here. She always had flowers in front here and a bunch of plants inside the dining room. As she looked in our window, says, just like you guys do. They mess with us mostly, me often. I set the color down. I set the cooler down to wash it and turn around and turn to the house. When I looked back, I saw my dog's toys was in the cooler. They've turned the lights on and off. Crazy ones was when I threw away some moldy cheese in the morning and it went to work. When I got back home, it was back in the fridge. Asked my wife if she took it out, and she said, why the F would I take a moldy cheese out of the trash and put it back in the refrigerator? Also, sorry, I'm just laughing. Also, supposedly, since the dog can see them, one time my dog, or my two dogs, stepdaughter's dog, we're all looking up at the ceiling and their heads back and forth, since as if they were following something that was moving. Sometimes when people tell stories, it's funny, but it's not. So I have a story to tell you, something similar like that. One time, me and my mom were sitting in the living room, and it was time to go to bed. So she goes to bed, and then I go to bed, and then I wake up in the morning, and she's like, hey, and I was like, what? She goes, did you move this chair? I was like, what are you talking about? Did I move what chair? So she shows me this chair, and it was my grandma's chair. It was out in the middle of the living room, I guess, and I was like, no, why would I move the chair, and what would I be doing with that? Why would I move it over there in the living room? She's like, I just saw that it was in the middle or moved, and I thought you did it. I was like, no, I didn't do that. I was like, are you okay? And she's like, no. And then she was kind of freaking out because she doesn't like that stuff. She gets scared. So she was kind of freaking out. But every single time I'd sit next to that chair and there was a cabinet and it was my grandma's, and it would always pop and creak and it would always open by itself. And then I'd tell her, so we put a piece of paper so it wouldn't open. And yeah, and now it's at my sister's house. So anyway, on to the next story. All right, this one says, I live next to a Civil War battlefield. We had a lot of weird experience in and outside of the house. Random music, whispering footsteps, hearing things fall upstairs, but nothing was out of place. When you check, feelings of someone sitting next to you or so forth. I haven't had anything weird happen since I relocated from that place. Yeah, because you're living where there was a bunch of energy that happened. This next story says, didn't happen to me, but years ago, my sister was house sitting, and I guess the house gave her an odd feeling. Dogs would react to nothing, explain sounds, etc. She ended up asking our dad to stay with her the next night, and then he said the place just felt weird. My sister mentioned it to the homeowner when they got back, and that's when she told her that the house was haunted. Left that little detail with asking her to house sit, huh? Wow. So you knew it was haunted and you say that to her when you get home? It says, my grandma was a force of nature and I loved her. When my grandma died, the relatives locked up the house and it remained untouched for 10 years. Hey, we are Italian and we don't let go easily, except for regular bi-weekly cleanings. And then eventually I bought the house and started cleaning things out because everything was exactly how it was when she died. The first night we were in the house and it was hot as Hades, but my teenagers tried grandma's fancy robe jewelries and wiggled the rooted through the dressers. Okay, Why do people talk like this? I don't understand it. They rooted through the dressers and trunks, and it was all fun and games until it wasn't. In the middle of the night, 19-year-old daughter came running into our bedroom, crying and yelling about the women standing at the end of her bed. It seemed to be very cold in her room, and she sat up and pulled up the quilt. A woman was standing at the end of her bed staring. Beds were originated to the house. We laughed and pooh-poohed her, but she refused to return to that room. So she stayed in our bed that night and many nights that follow. I told her we were not sleeping in the same bed where my grandfather died. And she vowed never to return. One second night on the house, my husband woke up and asked who was in the hallway, thinking it was one of the other kids. He got up to look around, but saw no one. It was one of the girls in their robes heading in the bathroom, except it wasn't. My husband, the nuclear scientist, detected it was just headlights passing by, my beloved voice of reason. A few weeks passing, all was quiet except the middle of the night, smells of brewing coffee and burnt toast, Grandpa's favorite breakfast. My daughter went next door to my cousin's house to let her dog out and returned with a picture of the family reunion. She pointed out the grandmother and said, "This is the lady standing at the end of my bed." She had never met her great-grandmother. I went down to the basement and chattered with Grandma, telling her that while I loved her presence there, she was scaring my kids, and I told her that I loved her and would take care of the house and she and my grandfather built, and that was okay for her to move on. Be quiet. It's been quiet ever since. She was just trying to tell you she was there. And she wanted to show herself, and she was probably just trying to tell you thank you for taking care of her stuff, So, yeah, that's kind of a funny story and a spooky story. And on to the next one. It says, I grew up in a haunted house. It's funny reading through these threads and seeing materials gymnastics of people will do to explain things. Sorry. I was fortunate, or maybe unfortunate, in seeing inevitable proof of my activity. The previous owner of the home had a 2-year-old child die, and the house... Well, I would have to clean a little handprints off of my mirrors weekly. I was the youngest and my hands were much larger than the prints, and it wasn't a one-off phenomenon either. Maybe the neighbor's toddler was sleepwalking at night, sneaking into our house and dragging a step stool into my room, touching my mirror, putting the stoop back, and locking up in the hallway on his way out. Anyway, there was a lot more than that going on, and that is one that couldn't be explained by wind of the house setting, tricks of the eye, carbon monoxide, etc. My advice to you is to just ignore it. The more attention you pay to it, the more frequently the wind will blow your blinds open and close the door. Yeah, like I said, The more you pay attention to it, the more it's going to come to you, and just ignore it. Act like it's not there, and if you can't, then you need to seek help. Why would a little toddler sneak outside the house and go to their house, open the door, grab a stool, do what they were doing, put the stool back and go back into the other house? It could be possible. You never know. But it's kind of weird to say that because I don't believe that story. And on to the next story. Says, my grandparents' house is haunted. I never had anything nefarious happened. Nefarious happen. It's not just one person experiencing things on a regularly. Many of us have seen and heard things alone or in a group over the years. I am 35 now, and I've been experiencing all my life. She's kind of a comfort to me in this point. I'm supposed to inherit the house. It'll be interesting to live with her again. Okay, so their house is haunted and everybody's been seeing it. This one says, I never believed in ghosts before, and the same thing happened when I moved into my current house. Lights would turn off and on, and randomly, even when I was in the room, I'd smell random whiffs of cigarette smoke. Nobody smoked in my house, and nobody was smoking outside. My dog would bark at things during the night. Then in 2019, I was having some landscaping work done. A guy was working in the front yard, and there was an oval-shaped directive window at the front of the house and leads to the attic. I went outside asking him if he had any questions, he wanted anything to drink, and he said, yeah, who's the old lady who watches me work from the window? And he pointed to the attic window. So it's showing the window of this house. The neighbors had told me that the previous owner moved and the mother lived with them until she passed. So I told all of this to the friend who was always believing in ghosts and the supernatural. Paranormal activities. She wasn't surprised by any of it. She told me the next time I felt her presence to open the front door and show her the light, calmly tell her it's okay and leave, and I did, and I haven't had any more strange occurrence since. Yeah, so all you gotta do is talk to them, and if they don't listen, that's on them and you to figure it out and get them out of your house. This one says, stuff happens all the time where I live now. In my house, my childhood home. I live alone and choose not to entertain it. I've jumped out of bed because someone was walking up my stairs. Potted plants have been thrown while I was away. Vacuum cleaners have been put behind the front door while I was away. There was a month where every night I was awoken by a sound as soon as I was drifting off to sleep. Multiple times at night, dog barking at the corner. I like to speak about it. I don't like to speak about it because the energy it brings, and I can relate. Yeah, same with me. My mother also passed recently, so I assumed it was her saying hello. It does not happen at random times. It happens at times when I would expect my mother to be disappointed. I would expect my mother to be disappointed. My house has become dirty. I need to vacuum. Laundry is everywhere. When something happens, I'll clean my house and it stops. I don't know. I've never spoke of it to anyone. Your ghost doesn't like your house dirty. Why doesn't it clean itself? You clean the house, ghost. You don't like it dirty. You clean it. So this next one says, the last homeowner I owned for the last home I owned for 10 years was very haunted. My daughter and I felt it was an old man. I saged and had the home blessed and told him to leave. He stayed, and we just accepted him as a part of the family. On occasions, he would have occurred when we were afraid, but overall, he was just annoying poltergeist. So, this next one says, I never lived in a haunted house, but I did have strange things happen after my mom passed away. She said she would let me know if she was okay after she died, and I truly believe it was her. Only happening for 2 weeks, then stopped. My girlfriend experienced it as well, so I know it was real. We had objects move at night to different places. I woke up and the noise to see an arm floating through the door. I knocked over a card on the jewelry chest and the handles were shaking after like something bumped it. I literally saw a piece of paper picked up off the table, lifted into the air, then moved over 2 feet and dropped. There is no other explanation for any of it. Cats were not in the room to hit the jewelry box. No fans or AC was to move the paper. And yes, I was sober for it all. I say that stuff all the time. Then all of it just stopped and never occurred again. Don't let the skeptics pour water over your lived experiences. There are many mysterious things that happen and we don't fully understand yet. Energy cannot be destroyed. It's only changed state. Just because we don't have scientific explanation today doesn't mean we won't in the future. Yeah, so that's the things that I say all the time. I believe in ghosts, like I said. I believe in the paranormal. I believe that I've seen things too, and I've heard things. And on a daily basis, I see flashing lights above me, beside me, below me, sometimes in front of me. But every time I look, it just leaves. And I could just be sitting there with people, and I'll look up, and they'll look at me like, why'd you just do that? And I was like, well, I just saw a flash of light. What do you want me to do? Just not look at it? And I explained this to someone before in my life, and they were like, why don't you embrace it? And why don't you tell me what you feel? So they asked me a question, and then I told them back, and they started freaking out. I'm like, what's wrong with you? They're like, would you know that? You don't even know me like all the way. And this is a new friend. I was like, I don't know. I just said it, you know? And so I'm not really like that because it scares me, and I don't really like want to open a portal. Like I said in my last video, I don't want to open up something, but I would like help with it if I could get someone out there to help me with it and talk about it. I've tried to go to mediums or psychics, and all they say is weird stuff. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. And that I need to wish upon a rock and pay them more money and call them and everything. And I do believe people are mediums and psychics, and I do believe people can see ghosts, spirits, and hear them. And I've seen some weird, crazy stuff, and so has my friend. And I think it's real because you don't know where energy goes. And I've talked about real life death experiences. And so when you die, you come out of your body and you're still you, but your body's in the world, like on earth. But then you die and you come out and you're into a spiritual realm and in a holding spot, and you see your life story. And sometimes you come back and sometimes you don't. So I'm learning about all this stuff. And that is the last of my story. And I want to tell everybody thank you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And join me on my next podcast. I want everybody to be safe, have fun, and have a great day and great month and a great week and great everything. So we'll see you again. Peace out, everyone. Bye.